So welcome everyone. My name is Alex Lee, and I'm the representative for Stronghold Technology for North and South America. So this is a Roastrum discussion panel, and so we try to have Roastrum, 2, 3, 4 times a year with different topics. It doesn't always have to be about roasting, even though we're Stronghold and it's called Roastrum. As you guys know very well today, we are not talking specifically about roasting. I'll ask some questions about the role of roasting in competitions and etc. But I really want to talk about you guys and what you guys have experienced and have seen in the world of competition. That is not just the 15 minutes of the barista competitor getting the spotlight, because we all know there's so much more that goes into it. So we're going to chat about the work that the public doesn't get to really see on stage. And for the 15 minutes on stage, hundreds of coffee professionals around the world and their teams puts on so much work and passion into their routines. And as we know, the world of coffee competitions is a really an intense one. And our guests today here know this more than anyone, as they've been involved with coffee competitions in different ways over the past many years. Today, we hope to shed some well-deserved spotlight on everything that goes on and off the stage, and maybe we'll get some insider information and tips for the journey to the stage for those who are looking into competitions or just being involved, whether it's volunteering or judging, organizing, sponsoring, or just helping your friend who is willing to be on that spotlight on that stage. So without further ado, I just want to introduce our panelists today. So from my screen, left to right, we have Danilo, Jill, and Jason. So we'll just go in that order, if that's okay. Danilo, do you mind starting us off with your introduction?
And hey, everyone. So I'm Danilo from Brazil. I've been working with coffee since 2004, and I've been involved with competitions. Well, like as a judge and organizer since 2009, but not a lot of people know in 2005, I competed here in Brazil as well. Yeah. So and it was because of the bad experience that I have from competing that I step up as a judge, because I wanted to change things, and I didn't realize how big it was. And I became a WBC certified judge in October 2010, and then in 2013 I was officialized as WC rep. And I've been working with coffee in different areas since, like green coffee buying, roasting coffee. And because of my role as a judge as well, a few people asked me to help them with their routines. And I became a non-intentional coach. Like, it was not my first intention at the beginning, but after a while, I just embraced it, and I help a few people to compete.
Amazing. And I think from your introductions, all of you, there will be so many more things that I know you guys all do, and we'll get a little bit more into that. Jill, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jill. I am from Calgary in Canada, and I've been with Monogram Coffee for 9 years, so since 2014. I started competing myself only 6 months after I started working for Monogram. That was early 2015, and so it's been a number of years as well for me for competing. 2020, I won the National Barista Championship for Canada. And got to represent us in Milan, and still been involved with competition outside of competing myself. I've judged and volunteered in many ways as well, because I just think it's such a great place for people to develop their skills and to create community. And yeah, so I have been involved in competition since I started at Monogram, and recently just spent some time coaching another person who you might know, whose name is Ben Putt. And the last 2 world competitions, I got to serve as his coach, which was such a good experience. And yeah, I'm involved in, my title here is Director of Coffee and Education. So I take care of the coffee menu here at the cafes and oversee all of our cafe and wholesale training as well.
Today's not about Ben Putt. We're not going to use his name a single more time this this panel. It's
I
pretty
had.
brilliant, Joe.
That's
Jason.
it. Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, I'm Jason. I am the lead roaster for Archetype Coffee in Omaha, Nebraska. I've been roasting since 2008. I've been with Archetype from the beginning at 2014, I believe we started. In and out of competitions, various ones. I've done cup tasters and roasters, and I've judged Barista, the judged roasters. But for the past almost decade now, I've been sort of right side by side with Archetype Coffee's Isaiah Sheese, as he's been kind of going on a long journey to finally becoming the champion, the U.S. champion in 2023, and then got to see these beautiful people in Athens as well, and where he came in fourth in the final. So
Yeah, that was amazing. His set was amazing. His routine was great, but his set was so beautiful, like the backdrop. For those of you who haven't had a chance to see Isaiah's or anyone's routine actually this year, they're all on YouTube. It's
Yes, they're
actually
all on YouTube.
yeah, the audio and videos are actually really good. So feel free to go and check those out. I know today's not about those 15 minutes, but as we talk about different things that go on off of that stage, I think we can start to appreciate different aspects of what is happening on that stage. Every single word, every single step, everything is just so well prepared by so many different people. As we briefly touched on, we're heading into a very busy season for coffee production, harvest, cupping, competitions. So for coaching and for people who are involved with retail, we're already getting ready for the back to school and leading into the holiday season. So thank you again for making the time this evening to record this live webinar. And anytime during this webinar, please feel free to chime in with any comments and questions. And the questions are for everyone to answer if you'd like. But I will direct some of the questions that are more specific to different people. But honestly, I know you guys all have tons of experience in every aspect. So I'm really looking forward to this. First and foremost, I want to start with an aspect of the hard work that goes into competitions that often gets a little forgotten about. And it is the work of the organizers at World Coffee Championships, or WCC, as you might abbreviate today, and SCA, Specialty Coffee Association. And to speak expertly with so much experience on this specific topic, I'm so happy to have Danilo Lodi here. I met Danilo actually in a competition setting. I was a competition coordinator for SCA Canada, and I actually invited Danilo up twice actually to sanction our national championships, and it's been really wonderful to connect you in that way. So you have been judging and organizing countless times. I think it's literally countless. Every time I ask you, you just can't count events around the world. And can you tell us about like what WCE is and what WCE representative does? I think this is a very important and interesting aspect of competition that many don't realize that even exists unless you're a competitor or you're really part of the competition. Yeah, so tell us about what WCE is and what WCE rep is.
Sure. It's funny we were talking about this because Saturday there was a good friend of mine called Carl Sara. I think he was 3 times finalist of WBC from New Zealand. He was here in São Paulo, and we sit down to talk about it. And we were just talking about how like the first certifications came to be and how we create like a little bit more formal the role of the rep and everything. So what before we created the WCE, we have like WBC and the other competitions, and they were organized. WBC was kind of like a joint effort between SCA and SCAE, and the other competitions like Coffee and Good Spirits, Latte Art, Cup Tasters. They were organized and EBRIC by SCAE. So after this, like even before the join of SCA of the both entities to one, WC came to be. and we create a very strong program to certify judges, but also to train the reps, which is going to be the person who's going to nationals, not only to train the judges, but also to oversee the competition, help the organization with anything related to how to organize the competition, any like problems, conflict that happens during on-site, is the rep to be involved with that. So it was a process, and it was funny because I started right when they were changing things. So for you to become a WBC judge or any World Coffee Competition judge, you need to be judging for at least 2 years in different nationals. And then you need to apply to do the certification. After you pass the certification, you need to judge for at least 2 worlds to apply to be a rep. And even when you apply, you need to have 2 letters of recommendation for existing reps that will recommend your job. After that, you go to 2 nationals as a rep in training. And then there's a lot of set of skills that you need to accomplish during this for you to become a rep. So it's a long road. If you're thinking about it, like the shortcut is like 6 years for sure to become a rep. I did a little bit faster than that just because of the amount of the competitions that I was doing. Like I did the certification before 2 years because I was already in the number like 22, 23 when I did the competition. I already been judged for in 3 different countries, regionals, nationals. But it's all of that. And people think, oh, the guy can't come from another country, just train the judges, maybe judge the competition and go. It's not about that. We need to do like a pre-competition report about everything and a post-competition report about everything. And from, did they have everything on site? Were the logos well exposed? Did it have any issues? Do you have enough baristas? Do you have enough judges? Do you have a calibration barista? Like score sheets? Any particular translation of the rules or interpretation of the rules happen? Because you deal with different languages as well. So sometimes something is lost in translation. So it's a very tough job, the WC rep. And sometimes I always say that I try to make the best out of the situation, because it's not every time that we have a perfect scenario, like a perfect venue or a perfect event, but we try to make the best, because I think that we should take the time and do everything that we can to have the best scenario for the competitor. And I always try to train the judges like, hey, let's not take it easy because of national. Like we need to give them as the best scores and what was delivered exactly how it would be in worlds. Otherwise, sometimes people will get like a crazy high scores here, go to worlds, the same routine, and get down scores because we were like trying to reward something. So there's a lot of work going through that. I think like for me, like and we don't get paid. It's a volunteer job. We get zero money out of this. Of course, as a rep, Alex know, like they pay for our expenses to go, like tickets, hotel, meals, but we don't. We actually lose a little bit of money, especially me that I'm a consultant. I like this days that I'm not working. But I mean, like I was in Australia last year, a few months after judging, being the rep for Brewers Cup in Canada, and having Jill and Ben come to me saying how great was the experience for them to compete in a competition that I helped organize. For me, like that's my payment. That's my payment for them to have a great experience. That's what I need. I don't need anything else out of that.
Yeah, and I've had the privilege of working with you, Danilo, and obviously Mike Strump we have in Canada, Hector from Mexico, and Michael McCauley from France as well. And maybe we got lucky as Canada, but what you said is exactly true. They put the competitors first, the experience, and they understand that they're limited resources when it comes to organization. And to be honest, in Canada, I think we, even though we always want more, and there's so many things that we can work on, the structure and the support from the community is actually really great, and we actually put together competitions that are more or less similar to Worlds. And to be honest, if you compare to around the world, that is a pretty high luxury. And I do want to ask you later about like developing countries and how to get competition started in new countries a little later on. But yeah, so thank you, Danilo, for your work here in Canada and obviously around the world. And flipping to non-organizing side, just purely competing side, Danilo, we're going to come back to you about WC stuff as again, it's very interesting. Jason, I want to go to you. So tell us a bit about your journey to World Rich Championships. So as you mentioned in your intro, this wasn't Isaiah's first try. This wasn't your first crack at being on WBC stage. Tell us about your journey and your team's journey.
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest things is to get to WBC, you have to win the US, and the US competition is really huge. I mean, we're a really big country, both in area and population, and there are so many competitors in so many regions, and to get down to that final 6 is really tough. And we tend to kind of always try to push the envelope and do something a little bit outside, and figuring out that, this competition is a game. You kind of have to figure out how to work within the parameters of what's gonna land for this panel of judges, how do you get some new ideas across, but not at sacrificing kind of ticking all the boxes of the score sheet. And so for probably, I mean, like I said, almost a better part of a decade, Isaiah has been competing, and I've been roasting his coffee, and the two of us have kind of been working on, the concepts and kind of how it would be presented. And he'd been climbing, always doing well, always usually making it to semifinals. I believe it was 2020. It was the first year he was in the final. And I think he came in 5th that year. The next year we had the whole lottery and COVID and all that stuff. And so he ended up not competing that year, but judging, which for a competitor, if a competitor has a chance to take a year off and judge, it really gives you perspective on, exactly how do I communicate all these ideas to these judges, that a lot of times you don't realize just how hard of a job judging this is. Any of the volunteers, it's just a super hard job in the background that nobody ever sees. And one year Isaiah made me take a year off of helping and judge, and again, it was eye-opening, and it really helped us kind of focus on what to do. So this year, after skipping a year, it was kind of good. It gave us almost 2 years to figure out what we were going to do. And in the past, we had used some of these crazy world-class coffees that you see on the WBC stage, but that always sort of didn't really feel like us. And we were able to this time use a coffee that we serve every day in our cafes. It's a young female producer that works with a group that we work with in Colombia, and we've always loved her pink bourbon. And we decided to kind of go out on a limb and try to maybe see if we could get it processed differently. So we reached out to Diego Bermudez, keeping in mind that neither of them needed to get on board with this crazy idea that we had, but they both, because Lucy's coffee is amazing in its own right, and Diego's processing and his coffee that he grows is amazing. So to get 2 importers, 2 two producers to kind of collaborate under this idea that Isaiah had was a lot of organization, and we finally were able to make it happen. And we kind of went out on a limb and really went all out for the presentation. He also, and Jill will understand something about this. This last year during the U.S. Championship, he decided he was going to do Brewers Cup and Barista. And the whole time I was just like, this is so stupid. Why are you doing this? Just focus on, like, you've had 2 years to do Barista. We've got it all honed. Let's do it. He's like, oh, I'll be fine. So in trying to come up with his presentation for Brewers Cup, he wound up, he just flippantly had this opening statement of Bob Ross believed in happy accidents, and so do I. And it was basically like a launch pad to talk about happy accidents are great, but he really wanted to talk about scientific method and repeatability. And so it was like a way to frame that into an interesting context. So it wasn't just like da 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 science, da 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 science. And when he said that, it just kind of triggered something in me, and we came up with this whole presentation for not for his Brewers Cup, but for his Barista presentation, where it was all the place settings were Bob Ross paintings, and it kind of went from a sunrise to the midday to a sunset. And it just really kind of drove the point home visually of this gorgeous pink bourbon that he was using. And then, yeah, it was crazy. I mean, we were up against some heavy hitters in the final in Portland, and he finally pulled it off. And then we got to go to WBC, and that was an eye-opening. It's a whole other thing, it's huge. I mean, that event, all of the organization you're talking about that goes into it is amazing. And even from like all the competitors to the camaraderie backstage, it was a really cool, eye-opening experience. And Isaiah's always had it in his mind that he's only gonna do this 10 years. We've done it 9 years. We're really tired. I'm not sure if we're gonna do it again, but we might have a couple other crazy ideas up our sleeve to do for one more round, maybe. No promises.
And even just you explaining the past few years of your team's decisions that you guys had to make. There were so many points where you could have made different decisions, or I'm sure there were a lot of points of discussion. This is one thing I wanted to ask you and Jill specifically. How did the decision-making process work? I mean, choosing the coffee, what kind of visuals, what kind of concept? There's so many little things to decide, and once it's set and once it's in your routine, and once you do it, it's pretty final. So I'm sure every team has different dynamics, and I didn't know that you competed before and judged before, so I'm sure you bring more to the table than just roasting the beautiful coffees. Just so you and Isaiah and your team, how do you guys discuss like points of maybe differences, or do you just follow Isaiah? How does that work?
No, there's definitely a lot of headbutting, but we are actually very calibrated. But because of that, we actually usually bring in other people, so that we are not just kind of in our own little world doing what we like, making sure that we are figuring out just what target are we trying to hit. As far as choosing the coffee, like I said, I mean, there's a handful of super famous farms that produce insane coffee every year. But we have just, this year especially, we've always gone by taste. We've always gone by, it has to be a certain level of quality. But I think competition coffees are best when they are easy to discern. Like sometimes you can get these super high quality coffees that are crazy complex. You can throw a gazillion tasting notes out there and they will hit in different places for different people. But what you're really looking for is, like, when you say raspberry, every single judge goes, yes, raspberry. I mean, somebody might be thinking raspberry coulis, somebody might be thinking raspberry cobbler, but as long as it hits raspberry. So we've been kind of looking for a coffee that had more of like a singular, like super high quality, but a singular vibe that we could kind of run with. And that's kind of where some of Diego's processing came into play, because I had bought a coffee from Manhattan. We're always constantly like buying other people's coffee and trying them. And we got his Lady Geisha, and that coffee was insane. And so we asked him to process Lucy's coffee like that, and we wound up getting this really crazy peach note that we knew was going to land. So this year it was very much about how do we find a coffee that you can sell a handful of tasting notes that just hit 100% for every judge every time.
Yeah.
Because everything on the stage is going to be quality. So
yeah. And specifically as a roaster, and it sounds like you do so many more things than just roasting the coffee for competition. What does the preparation look like as a roaster when it comes to competition? So what I'm trying to get at is like, I would imagine, D minus 90 days looks very different from D minus 15 days or, 10 days to competition. How do you manage the time? And I'm sure, Isaiah's stressing about so many different things that you're probably also stressing about, but how do you take that roasting side stress away from Isaiah, and how do you manage stress together?
boy, how do we manage stress together? Hopefully pretty well. But I mean, as far as are you talking mostly in regard to competition roasting, or the roasting side of the business has to keep moving while we're doing competition?
No, it would be competition roasting. So I'm sure in the beginning you're roasting a whole bunch of different stuff, but towards the end, you've kind of set on a coffee. And
yeah. I mean, again, like having a clear picture of the kind of coffee we wanted and choosing that coffee as early as possible was key. And then when it comes to roasting, it's really easy for everybody to. I mean, I think you ask any roaster, they're going to say something similar. But my whole thing is the coffee inherently is going to have a quality, and I'm just trying to do it justice and get out of its way and let it taste like it tastes, And so we do roast kind of light, especially for the States. But it's just that I'm just looking to achieve caramel over carbon, and then let the innate qualities of the coffee shine. So I'm very much just kind of get in, get out. And so we have we sort of have our roasting thing down. So our approach, is we have a few paths to kind of find that right roast. And then after that, it's just about consistency of roasting it through the whole competition. We'll do things like once we find the roast, we'll package it in multiple small bags and taste it every day under the parameters that Isaiah would pull it. But we taste a brand new bag open that day, and we also taste the bag that was open the day before. And so we're knowing exactly which coffee at which time, like what day off roast, is that he's going to serve it. Because once we land on the one, like this is the one, then we just make sure that we have the coffee roasted on that date and bag it up and don't think about it anymore until it's time to open it for comp.
Right. And when it comes to roasting specifically, and as a roaster, does Isaiah kind of get heavily involved with the profiling of things? And I know you use a Stronghold, so like use more halogen or use less halogen, or
yeah, I mean,
is there like a deep level of trust where he's just like, what, this is what I want, Jason, and make it happen?
I mean, that's more the dynamic at first. The thing that was great about the Stronghold is that Isaiah was actually able to roast some of his own coffee this year, because just pulling up the profile that we had finally landed on. He might have accidentally pulled up the wrong profile a couple of times, but we caught it in time, so it was fine. he just, he'll let me know if it's roasty. He is captain. It tastes roasty. It tastes roasty. And so I've just learned to shoot for a very, very, very small target. And like I said, we're really calibrated. So usually if it's something that I like, he likes it, and vice versa.
Yeah, and I think what I've seen with really successful teams is that people might divvy up the task in a different way, whether it's roasting, tasting, or maybe someone's really involved with tech. That calibration piece, and I'm sure it comes with the experience and just time together and working together. But the calibration piece, I mean, Daniela, even judging wise, the calibration is key word for the competitor. So that's really key. And from what you're saying, Jason, it's really clear that you and Archetype team and Isaiah have been honing it, and you guys have it down. So maybe there's another year left for you guys. Yeah. And speaking of long-term competing companies, we have Monogram here as well. Jill, you have been supporting / coaching as well as competing for many years now. And I need to say, as a Canadian, I do want to take this platform to say thank you for what you do, because honestly, showcasing this hard work is extremely inspiring. And I know you have inspired so many people in Canada and around the world. And I want to thank you on this Roastrum today. And in terms of the mentality and things to consider, what would you say are some of the differences in between competing and coaching, supporting? I know they're very, very different things, but when it comes to the mentality of your approach, they're very intense. But what are some of the differences that you found?
Between coaching and being the competitor?
Yeah.
I think like ultimately when you are the competitor, you are the person who at the end of the day has to go out and deliver this set like very technically and perfectly as to how you like have planned it. So at the end of the day, the pressure is really on the competitor in that 15 minutes, which is something that I definitely like struggle with, that pressure. So that's also part of why I haven't done Barista again since the last time. Because I feel like, yeah, like as a coach, obviously it depends on the relationship that you have with your competitor as well. Like I would say within like the walls of Monogram, if you're coaching somebody who you have like a personal relationship with or someone that you worked with for a really long time, maybe it's somebody that like you have really worked hand in hand on creating this certain routine. There is a lot more of like personal investment into that routine if you are working very closely with it, as opposed to if you're working with somebody who has kind of like everything in place and you're just there at the last minute to help with like last minute fine tuning things. There's less of that like personal pressure, I guess, as a coach. So to me, I feel like I kind of suit better as a coach because I have experience from judging and competing, and I'm very like detail oriented, and I have the stamina to like watch and to be like an emotional support and to help kind of collaborate with the competitors. So I think I suit personally better for a coach than I do a competitor. But yeah, I would say, I mean, the main difference would just be, in my opinion, from doing it. And again, everybody is differently, and everybody deals with like stress and pressure differently. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I know you're saying it's not about that 15 minutes, and there obviously is a lot that goes in behind the scenes from every angle. But yeah, that last like 15 minutes really does come down to like this individual to deliver the set. So to me, that's the main difference. I don't know, I'm sure people would disagree with me, but that to me is the biggest difference between the two.
And you said the competitors are the ones who are using the 15 minutes, being on stage, delivering, and that is nerve-wracking. But to be honest, you included, if you look around the stage during those 15 minutes, you see people who are even more nervous, just sweating and just shaking, and they're even mouthing the scripts. They have like two phones to time everything. So no, the stress is definitely visible and real in your team, and no, I've definitely seen you specifically do that as well. And you touched on the team dynamic a little bit, and just because I do know you and the other guy pretty well personally, you guys have very different personalities, I think anyways. But I think there's really
Yeah.
you guys bring really different strengths, and as long as there's calibration in the coffee and that working relationship, just from outside perspective when we watch, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, when we watch you guys work together, it's really really cool. And every team dynamic is going to be a bit different. But from your perspective, what are some of the most important attributes to have when it comes to being a good supporter or a good coach? And I know we've talked a little bit. You're getting into coaching outside of just Monogram very soon, and it's already happening. And yeah, what do you think are some of the most important attributes to become a really great coach?
I think something to realize is that no single person is going to be like 100% proficient at every single aspect of competition. So even if you are a single coach, you're still going to need the support from other people. As a coach, you can't do everything and it be expected to be the best at every possible thing. I think something that is really important that has worked really well just within my own working relationships is pairing up with people that have like different strengths than you. So like you said, Ben and I do have different personalities. We work together, so we're very calibrated, but we do have very different skill sets, and that really works for a team dynamic because you can ensure that like I might bring A and B and Ben's going to bring C and D, or whoever it might be brings C and D, and together you can kind of create a whole picture instead of having people who are all kind of like in the same vein and have the same similar strengths. You're always going to miss out on certain points that are really key to creating like a whole barista presentation or brewer's presentation, whatever it is. So that has really worked for me in the past, is making sure that you have people that you're aligned with that have different skill sets. And also to have people who are on your team that trust you and are, I mean, it's funny because if you are not in coffee, barista competition sounds like the most ludicrous thing on the face of the planet. I remember like knowing Ben before I worked at Monogram and watching barista competitions and just thinking like, what is this thing that that these people are doing? But it really is like about creating a team who wants to see the best for that competitor, and try to align yourself with people who are not going into something looking to get something out of it, because it is a really high stakes and high pressure thing that people are signing up to do. And so people who are aligned with you, people who are like aligned with your values, that have different strengths, and people who like really want to see this particular competitor succeed and do the best that they can, instead of trying to figure out a way that you can like get ahead yourself as a coach or a support person or whatever it may be. So yeah, I think obviously different things work for different people, but those are kind of some of the things that I value and that I have seen worked and are important to me.
Yeah, no, the presence of trust is definitely evident in so many different teams, um, and I think that'll be really important too. Even if you haven't worked with somebody for past 10 years, 11 years, that trust, even if you can establish it immediately, I'm assuming that'll be incredibly helpful when you establish a new relationship. And Danilo, I want to ask you this, and I know you have coached different competitors before as well, but you're also a WBC rep and a WBC judge, and you judge a lot. So I'm sure when it comes to coaching and trying to, advise people on what they should do or say or think, um, because you are a judge and you just have so many experience on how people may be judged on national stage or world stage. How do you balance between asserting, what you want to say and kind of allowing the competitors the passion and their drive to shine?
Yeah, well, normally it's like I never tell them what to say. But if they say something that I know is going to trigger judges or if it's going to be against the rules, if they're going to want to do something that I know is going to break a rule and they're going to lose points, I'll tell them like, don't, or maybe try to do it in a different way, or try to say it in a different way. One thing that I always tell everyone that asks for my help is, let's avoid negative words. Let's avoid like, oh, even though it's like, if you say, oh, I grabbed this variety and I took out all of the bitterness, and don't say bitterness, like, God, no.
Yep.
Don't say a bad quality. Like, even if you transform something that was bad into good, don't say the bad one. Just say that you transform it and created this. I try, but like the rule-based ones is the most important thing. But I like to do, there's some other things that I like to do. It's, is it easy, especially national level, right? National level, you're going to have judges that is judging for the first time. You're going to have experienced judges. You don't know what you're going to get. Even like as a rep, I know that sometimes we're going to have someone in a panel that hates astringency, someone in a panel that loves bitterness. So it's hard to balance that. So one of the things that I try to tell the competitors is like, be very clear and concise with your communication and how you deliver everything that you're saying, and thinking about someone, especially national, that don't have a lot of experience. Try to explain this to, I don't know, your mom, your friend that don't work with coffee, whoever. Like, try to think about that. And one of the things that we like to do is invite people that do not work with coffee, think that our barista competition is crazy. Like, what the hell? Those guys are really are doing like a contest of who makes the best espresso. And at the end of it, I asked them, did you understand what he was trying to say? And I asked them to explain it to me. Yeah, no, I understood. Like when he was talking about the espresso, it was about this, and then the milk beverage is about that. So when the message is clear to someone else, good. But as a judge, normally what I try to do is like, I try to give them, like, I judge them as tech and sensory, give them the score sheets. I'm never going to be harsh. I always judge them as I would judge a world barista on a world barista stage. And again, if they want to do something that I think could be too edgy, too like about to break the rules or already breaking, I tell them, hey, don't do that. Do this like in a different way. I know what your goal is, but let's try to do a different path to achieve that.
Yeah, and from your experience in judging, I'm sure, maybe people take you more seriously or less seriously, but I know you're going to have really, really significant and impactful things to say. And on that note, all three of you are extremely valuable and inspiring people for your communities and your countries. I mean, national championship for Canada as well as US, and Danilo, we just had WBC champion from Brazil by our good friend Boram. But I want to chat about other countries who may not, whose coffee, especially coffee or coffee competition culture may not be as advanced as Brazil, Canada, and US for many different reasons. Some of them it's just especially coffee has entered the market just a little bit later, or maybe some markets just geopolitically and economically it's just really challenging because it does take a lot of resources. And this is what I wanted to ask you, Danilo. I know you have done a lot of work in setting up new competitions, and this was really important topic for us, Stronghold, as well. For those who don't know, we do sponsor lots of the World Roasting Championships, lots of different national ones. We're making a really big push to support lots of national ones. US, we've been running Roasting Championship for 2-3 years now, and a lot of European countries are actually joining a lot this year and next year. I think Austria just happened, or it's happening this weekend, I think. So for new, how do you foster and develop competition structure and culture in new countries, Danilo? So for the countries without Jill and without Jason, I would say, WC and the sponsors and the organization has really big impact. How do you take that approach?
I'm lucky because I was able to judge the first national in 4 different countries. So I did the first Chilean Barista Championship in 2011, the first Iranian in 2015, the first Kazakhstan Barista Champion. I was Coffee Experience and Latte Art in 2019, and in July I did the first Bolivian Barista Championship.
Oh, wow.
And Brewers Cup. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Like, I'm lucky. Brazil was the first Latin American country to ever send someone to WBC in 2002. So in the 3rd year of WBC, we already sent a competitor. We organized nationals since then. But going to a new competition, thinking about it, we need to do the training from judges from scratch. Like, they have zero experience. Normally the baristas are more prepared than the judges, for example, because they read the rules, they understand what they need to do. They saw, especially nowadays, they see a lot of YouTube presentations from other nationals and worlds. So I have to say, like, I saw a lot of things that Ben did, Isaiah did, Boren did, at nationals, because that's their examples, like what they have to aim is the first time competing. So I saw a lot of things that hey, I think I saw this before, like 2 weeks ago, because I was like, it was like not even 2 weeks after WBC that I did the Bolivian nationals. So, and it's very, and again, the organization, they don't know what they expect to do. Like, even like time schedule for everything, training the volunteers. It happens like first time, let's face it, even in experience championship, I have always have problem with the cameramans. Imagine in the first one, they put the camera like right in front of the judges or the baristas. Like I always tell everyone that I'm like I'm expert to hook their pants without looking, like, and just pull them, like, get out of the station, because and you need to be aware of everything. It's not only that, like, not that I'm there judging and I just focus on judging and that's it. No, I need to pay attention if the volunteers are doing okay, if the timekeeper press the time on time, if nobody's trying to invade the stage, which happened already with me. Cameras, if they're doing properly, if they're doing the score sheet properly, if we are going in a really good time manner, if nobody's screaming something to the competitor in the competition. Again, stuff that happened in the first national. But it's important, and I was really happy with the result in Bolivia. I think it was very stressful. It was a lot of work. I was sad because I had to let people not judging, because it was like I needed a minimum of skills to do it, and like handwriting and tasting and looking at people in the eyes. It's basic skills that some people don't have it, and I don't blame them. It's really hard to find tech judges, but I was really happy with the result. All the competitors were really happy about the competition. I think one of the other things that I really like when I train the judges is when I do the deliberation, the least amount of questions, the better. It's because we wrote everything down and there's no questions. Like, they read it out, like, okay, I have no doubts about, like, I know what I did. I know what I didn't want. I know what I should improve. And it was like that. We had like 13 competitors for Barista. I think just one asked maybe like 2 or 3 questions, and that was it. Everybody else was like happy. They understood. I have like a judges writing the whole thing, and I was like, no, you're gonna write it more. Like, no, you need to explain this. You just explained it to me. Now write it down. The barista needs to know. So there's a lot of effort, but just for you to understand, it was in Santa Cruz de la Sierra. They were expecting it was 4 days show with a Brewers Cup in the first 3 days, and then Barista from the second to the last day. They were expecting 2,500 people in those 4 days. They had 8,130 attendees in this first expo. Tiny little expo. There was some point that you could not walk it around. It was packed during announcements. It was packed during finals. It was great. So, and this create a culture, because I seen it happen like in Iran, Chile. I went there and then I went back after competition, and I saw more and more coffee shops going. Like I remember first time in Iran, everybody used it a blend, an Italian blend, like from the grocery store. And just one guy used it like a single origin that he roasted himself, and he won. I go there the year after. There's already like coffee shops roasting their own coffee and not buying like Italian brands or Spanish brands that are already roasted. And I see growing the market over there. And I'm pretty sure that it's going to happen the same thing in Bolivia and every country that start doing competition. It's a lot of work, very stressful, but it pays off, and I see the results going. And even when WBC happened in a place like Bogota, first time I went there was 2010 to judge nationals. WBC happened 2011. There's basically 1-2 coffee shops in town that with good coffee, and not even amazing, just good. Nowadays, Bogota is an amazing city to drink the specialty coffee.
And these new countries where competitions are going, not just competitions, but specialty coffee is growing. And as you have clearly illustrated, the competitions have, pretty big direct impact in the specialty coffee growing. I mean, just take a look at Calgary. If I were to go to a city to have, really great coffee, I would go to Calgary in Canada. And to be honest, it is because of Phil and Sebastian, and leading into Monogram, and and Rosa and Forward, and so many other cafes now. It's not just Monogram, Phil and Sebastian, and Rosa. There's so many cafes and coffee professionals doing really great things. And the reason why I'm interested in these new countries is because more and more, like maybe in the past, maybe 10 years ago to 5 years ago, if you look at the countries representing the finals in Brewers or Barista, it wasn't always the same, but you see similar countries going up every single time. And even now, those countries are still very, very strong. Most of the time, they will still go to finals, but we're seeing different countries and different regions showing up to semis and finals and winning in these past few years. And I hope it's not just past 2 years, but it's going to be a trend where we're going to see more diversified representation in finals, and merit based, not just for the diversity's sake. And that is really encouraging as a technology company, because as you guys know, what we aim to do is some level of decentralization by removing lots of different barriers. Stronghold roasters, if you guys have used them, you know how easy it is, and how versatile it can be, and easy to not just use, but it's really hard to mess up a copy on the Stronghold. You might have noticed. So I want to ask to everyone, what do you think? You don't have to speak about Stronghold, but just in general, what is the role of technology in specialty coffee improvement around the world? Because I think a lot of us think that it had a really big role in leveling some sort of playing field, maybe not all in terms of all the resources. But what have you guys seen in terms of technology use in the coffee world that has really allowed different players to really shine on the world stage and national stage? Anyone can take this one.
Well, like I have to say, like one of the things that comes to mind when the first time that I saw a competition was through a DVD. It's true. It was like I think it was Oslo, something like that. And when YouTube live stream everything came available, information became so easy. Like even nowadays, like I was here in São Paulo and I was following the Brewers Cup in Colombia, and I was watching by Instagram. They didn't have like a live stream, but someone else start doing like a live, and then I was able to watch it. I think like the advent of the smartphone and internet, YouTube, those things helped it a lot. The exchange of knowledge, like something like this that we are doing right now, 10 years, 15 years ago, was not something that it was happening. So this kind of shared knowledge, it I think, and even to like for someone to get to know a Stronghold or the espresso machine of the World Barista Championship of the grinder, to understand a little bit more. There's like tons of videos nowadays explaining that. To get to know a little bit more about those informations, I think the access of information nowadays, it makes it way easier, everything.
Yeah, it may not allow anyone to be able to get their hands on really expensive equipment, or maybe really expensive coffee, or maybe really expensive coach, but that access information. I mean, that's what inspired me in so many different ways. The first videos, even before I started, right as I was starting coffee, I typed coffee competitions on YouTube, and so many videos came up. And looking back, I don't even know if they were good competitors or not, but I was like, whoa, this thing exists. I was really, mesmerized and inspired. So yeah, definitely the access to information, also measuring the technology to even assess in a chemical level. Obviously we know about the roasting, measuring the thermal activity and how important that is. Yeah, so it's really interesting to see the level of leveling the playing field in so many different ways. I think we still have long ways to go. We don't necessarily have to like force it. Like hard work will speak for itself, and I know you guys know that better than anyone. It's not like you guys just stumbled upon a luck that allowed you to be on world stage, and your team being on world stage. You guys worked for it, so that is really inspiring to see. No, seriously though, just seeing how much you guys work and seeing the reward. I know you guys feel great about that because you guys work for it, but people just watching, people who are aspiring to be coffee professionals, that's really inspiring for us to just do better in our little role. Maybe we're never going to compete. Maybe we're just working on something very specific in the coffee industry. You guys are definitely role models in our industry. Danilo, Jerry, back to you again. Tell us a bit about the judging, because people, competitors often thank, during interviews, they thank their team, they introduce their team and say, Jason's our roaster, Jill has been very helpful for, past many years to be a support. But competitors don't often really thank specific judges on stage. Obviously, that's a little weird. Tell us a little bit about judging. Obviously, during the 15 minutes, everyone's looking at them, but you are responsible to give the score at the end of the day. And from public perspective, if somebody has never judged before, all we can think is like, well, how do they know? What do they know? So what kind of work goes behind in calibration, and how confident should the world be in you guys' level of judging?
Yeah, like for WBC, for example, it doesn't matter if you're a certified judge. The day before the competition, so 2 days before the competition, all the reps and head judges, they go through calibration, right, to see if they're calibrated. And then the day before the competition, all the judges, sensory and tech, pass through calibration. If they are not calibrated, they don't judge. They might help with other stuff on site, like maybe shadow judge, maybe helping like stage manager or something, but they're not going to judge. We're very clear with that. We understand people make sometimes sacrifice to pay their tickets, go to an expensive country, and maybe arrive there and not judging. But we need to think about the competitors. That's the most important thing for us. And even after that, every day, every morning, every panel goes to taste espresso. First of all, to not start judging without espresso taste, but also we go through a calibration where we're talking about, hey, what was your taste experience? What are the flavor notes here? And then we talk about, and we do an open discussion with that. Same thing with milk beverage. Of course, We cannot do this with SIG bev because it's too many variables, but we do this too before we enter on stage. And again, we keep calibrating them during the competition. As head judges, we tend to pay attention in everything that they are doing. If they are doing well in the comments. And even before that, there's someone that will, like, let's say, like I finished my shift judging, and now they're going to give me a pile of score sheets for me to read through. See, there's no, if the rules are matching the scores, or if there's nothing that is reading that is not rule-based. And if there is, put a post-it, tell the judge later to, hey, rewrite this comment. And it's just about the comments, you know, like your comments are not matching your scores. And the deliberation is the same thing, because it happens. Sometimes you got struck by a coffee that you don't quite understand, or some tasting notes that you've never heard of it, like, or some fruit they never heard of it. I can even tell from my own experience when I judge Dale Harris as a sensory judge in 2017. He mentioned Ethiopian honey. I didn't know what it was, so I wrote it down what I felt in that milk beverage. And then I went back. Luckily enough, my head judge spent tons of time in Ethiopia. And then he looked at me, you just described Ethiopian honey with other words. So he was right. Good for you. Nice. It's like, again, it's a descriptor that I, even an experienced judge as myself, never heard before, never tried before. So the judges are there for everything. And even in Worlds, if you look at, we have the sensory judges, tech judge in the first round only, and head judge. But also we have the shadow judge too, that it takes all the information that the barista is giving about taste descriptors, especially recipes and some coffee information. And we have the shadow one, which is in another rep head judge that looks if the reps are following protocol, if the reps are smiling, if the reps are looking at the competitor, if when the competitor is in front, talk to them, if they're looking at them. And then when we go back to the judgment, hey, you're not looking. Hey, he asked you to stare like 10 times, you stare just 8. And it's even stuff like that that we try to control to be the best that we can. And of course, pointing it out sometimes is uncomfortable, like saying, hey, I cannot read your score sheet. Please write in a better handwriting. Sometimes you say like, hey, I think you're being biased towards a certain flavor or a certain aspect of sweetness, acidity, bitterness. So let's try to remove that for like everybody. Like that's why it's 4 judges. Like 3 of them are saying one thing. You're the only one that's saying this. So that's why there's important the deliberation backstage as well. So we try to do our best to deliver the experience to be as fair as possible.
And I think I'm saying this because I am not a competitor, but I think it's always important to remember judges are humans too.
And we made mistakes. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
But if I start competing, I'm gonna come after everything that I don't agree with, right? This question is for you, Jill, Jill and Jason, and it may be a very cliche one, and I'm sure people have asked you this so many times, but I do really want to hear from you guys. What did it mean for you guys? Let's start with Jason. What did it mean for you to represent your country on world stage this year?
Oh, good grief. I mean, it's WBC is like the Olympics of coffee. And so, I mean, it is humbling to be a part of the US championship team. And even more humbling to, you know, people don't realize how hard it is to, I mean, even not just the journey of the competition, but once you win your country, you know, it's a huge undertaking to take a team WBC. Super expensive. It's you are carrying tons of equipment that should not be a carry-on on a plane, or definitely should not go underneath in the cargo. And you know, you have to find sponsors, and it was really crazy and humbling to just see a lot of people rally around us and sponsor us to allow us to get there, and then just do our best. I mean, I'm sure Jill has a lot to say on that as well.
Yeah, Jill, I want to ask you the same thing, Jill. And you guys have been, I mean, you have been going back to WBC stage as competitor and as support for quite a few times now. I kind of want to hear your perspective on returning to WBC representing Canada.
Yeah, I think that obviously like so fortunate to be able to be part of a team that's been there more than once. And I don't think that with any returning time that it's less important or humbling or amazing than any time before. I think any time that you're able to, because as barista competitors, as coaches, as support systems, like we all see how much sacrifice and time and energy and hard work goes into each person's competition routine. And I think to be able to input that much energy and time and like heart into something and to see other people receive it and reward you for that and being able to take it and show your peers who are all over the world, I think it's just such an incredible honor that you are able to do it, whether you've been there one time, it's your first time, or multiple times. I don't think that it's ever something that's like, we've been here before, we don't really care that we're here. I think that everybody who is on the WBC stage has put so much time and effort, energy, heart, sacrifices, shed tears, had lots of fun, done, like spent lots of money, done everything that you can do to get there. And it's just such a rewarding experience every time, anytime.
And for those who are a little bit more aware of different aspects of the competition, it is really, really evident, whether it's on the competitor's face or volunteers, MCs, judges, and the support. So definitely we can feel that just from the public. And Danilo, I know you didn't go into WBC with a specific team, but this year you guys did it. Brazil did it.
Yeah.
What did that mean for you? I mean, I did see you, and it was an incredible moment, obviously, at that moment. What did it feel like, and what did that mean for you?
I mean, I remember like in 2009 when I started judging, I remember that Yara, that was competing in Atlanta, asked me to go there, judge her as a tech judge. And then in 2010, she asked me again, and I was able to just help like with score sheets of tech judging. That's it. And I remember like that was the first semifinals that ever happened in London. And she made it, and she made it like 9th place. But after that, we stopped getting good positions, and as a judge, it was a little bit frustrating to me to having my peers, other judges, telling me, "Hey, Danilo, you should compete." A lot of people, oh, you should be flattered. Like, no, it means that the level of the country is not doing enough. You know, I think like the last time that we made like top 20, it was 2013 that we made like 5th place in Brewers Cup, and then we made 17 in WBC. But after that, it was always like behind. And then I remember at that time, like in 2019, I helped Marta from Brazil. That at that time she was my girlfriend, but we were a team. I helped her and Arthur to do it, and she did amazing. Went to semifinals, got 14. And then when she said, I'm not competing next year, and Borden and Gordon asked for my help, because of them, I say, like, let's do it. Like, because I see that you guys are dedicated and do it. But again, it's a lot of people. It's not like it's so people are so used to here not to, oh, we're never going to make it, you know? And the last time that Brazil was in, the only time that Brazil was in finals before was 2007. There was not even semifinals at that point. So it was a long, long time ago. And to be able to pull it off, and I know that, again, it's Boran and Garen, like 1st place in Barista, 3rd place in Brewers Cup. But I see their dedication and everything, but it means a lot to Brazil too, because It was a lot of like, we're kind of like the underdog. If you know Boron and Ngata, you never think about that ever. But if you're inside, if you're in Brazil, even in Latin America, I think like if you do like a poll before the competition, people would never put them in the top three. I don't think they would. You know, like of course, like maybe Ben would, maybe I don't know, like some other competitor like Danny from Italy would, because they know Boran, they know like they competed with him, they saw how much he dedicated himself and everything. But from people on the outside, no. So it was a huge accomplishment. That like I think like it was a week for me to actually. What the hell? Like I'm not there's the trophy of World Championship like a few kilometers away from my house. Can you believe that? You know, it was like it was crazy for me to even realize that. And I think it's still, and it's funny because Boron went to so many interviews for the national like channels here in magazines and newspaper, but like even like talk shows, like morning shows, stuff like that, we never see someone talking about coffee. Maybe once in a while. Biggest producer in the world, biggest producing country. Like I think in consumption, Brazil is the biggest one from producing country. They drink like around 6 kilos a year, 5.6, 5.8. For any producing, no other producing country drinks that much coffee. And now like people are paying a little bit more attention and expensive coffees and stuff like that. Of course, we have a little bit of specialty coffee scenario going on in Brazil, but I think this is just going to be even bigger after that. I think it's going to open a lot of eyes for that. So it was very, very nice to see it happen to someone as nice and dedicated as Boran.
I think every time we see a new champion, I think there's new inspiration, and obviously we look at what they had to say afterwards as well. And obviously during the time, but we look back at the YouTube videos, and yeah, it's just, I think we all know that the champion is going to be the ambassador for specialty coffee, and not just the champions, but all the competitors, especially in the top six. So hopefully, people who are viewing this, whenever you go and watch competitions now, whether it's in person for your regionals or nationals, or watching YouTube videos of worlds, or even having the privilege of going to the worlds to watch. Hopefully, obviously there's hard work of the competitor, and they're the main character that day. But take a look around at the timekeepers, at the runners. They're stressing out too. Of course, at the judges. And look around closest to the stages, someone white knuckled holding the phone that is counting up from zero and probably mouthing the script. Now hopefully you can look at them and kind of have an understanding of what is going on here, that they're the team.
Yeah.
And it's not just somebody on the stage, but it is the entire team. And once you get to know more, you get to appreciate more as well and value more as well. And I've had the privilege of being able to do that by being part of the Stronghold team. And Jill, obviously at Monogram, you guys had the S7 Pro and the S7X, and for your competition coffee and Ben's past few years of competition coffees, it's been roasted in the Stronghold, and we're very thankful for that. You guys speak very highly of the Stronghold too, but honestly, it's you guys' really hard work as well, and thank you for trusting your hard work and your relationships, not just of Monogram, but your relationship with the producers and everyone that you guys work with to be roasted in the Stronghold. And Jason, you roasted in the S7 Pro for nationals and worlds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting an S9X pretty soon here, and maybe switching to the S7X as well. So
yeah,
Nice.
you should reach out to Ben. He has a Pro and the X. He's doing lots of comparisons. I don't know what he likes best. I'm gonna go run some events in Calgary with him next month. So I'm gonna take a look to see what he's liking on both machines. But thank you guys for putting your trust in Stronghold roasters to represent your coffees. And we know Boram also used Stronghold to roast his coffees as well. It was roasted in Calgary by Paul, who is the head roaster at Rosso. So just a stone's throw away from from Monogram there as well. So it's really cool to see our technology being used by so many coffee professionals, businesses, and competitors, and it doing so well. So first, fourth, and sixth place this year, all use Stronghold on the on WBC final stage. So that was really, really inspiring and really gratifying, and we're going to keep working on it. And it's platforms like this that allows us to share. You know, we didn't really talk about Stronghold until the last few minutes here, but this is honestly, this means a lot to us. We're a technology company. We don't just make hardware, but to be honest, it's the software that allows people to connect, that breaks down different barriers that exist in the coffee industry as best we can. We can't solve everything, and we can't solve things overnight either. But we hope that through our accessibility and connectivity, we can provide better access and, as you said, access to information as well. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. I don't think we have much questions coming in today, like the other like tech oriented panels. It was a very feel good evening to finish my day here today. And I hope you guys also had a really great time. And see you guys in maybe another Roastrum and other events around the world. This means that Archetype's going to keep competing, so I can see you guys next year in Busan.
Not this year. We'll see. Maybe in the future. We'll see.
Okay.
There's always Brewers Cup.
Yeah, there's always Brewers Cup.
There's always Brewers Cup.
Yeah. And I know all three of you are getting into really busy season, be it retail, competition, coaching, production, harvest. So thank you so much for taking your time. And I hope the next 3 to 4 months of really busy time is going to be great for you guys.